Hello, everybody. This is Dieter of Dieter School of Martial Science, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about yellow zone fighting. Now, as you probably remember, um, yellow zone fighting is part of our three zones of fighting at DSMS. So, um, the red zone is what we start out with. That's because that's usually where the fight is. Green zone is the second zone we start out with because sometimes that's where you transition from. Yellow zone we save for last because the skills you use in green zone fighting are going to build into yellow zone fighting. Um, so, yellow zone fighting. Well, yellow zone fighting is very simple. Like I was talking about with my buddy Jeremiah. Um, it's it's where you can reach out and touch them, and they can reach out and touch you. For lack of a better definition. Um, Now, like anything else, any other type of fighting we do, uh, I always stress avoid conflict if you can. Um, that said, yellow zone fighting. Well, it starts out with you have your same hands and your same feet that you got into with green zone fighting. I tend to keep it simple, so I don't, as a rule, uh, teach multiple techniques. Um, I kind of teach ones that are sort of universal. However, in yellow zone fighting, one of the techniques that I teach that I don't teach in any other format is your transition um, parries, for lack of a better word. So instead of stopping a block and just kind of parrying it or slapping it out the way, your transition parries all have to do with circular motion turning into a grab, okay? Or straight up and down turning into a grab, or straight up turning into a grab, okay? These are useful because in yellow zone fighting, we're transitioning from per se a punch to a grapple to a red zone fighting. So that way we can finish our opponent quickly and swiftly with minimal work. So one of the things that um, uh, yellow zone fighting, it's important to remember two things. One, I want you to T Rex. I'm going to lower this camera so y'all can see what I mean. So, T Rexing is where you keep your arms in toward your ribs and you keep your hands out. Can y'all see? So T Rexing is a simple way to have a good guard that protects your body. Okay. Um, Sometimes you're gonna flare your elbows out if you're protecting that center line. But in when you're just guarding, when you're not doing anything, you want your elbows fairly perpendicular to the ground. Um, so another thing about yellow zone fighting. Yellow zone fighting takes our long range techniques like our inside to outside rounds or our step kicks, and we use those to um, injure the opponent from a more safe distance. Now, what I want you guys to think about, yellow zone fighting is tricky business. because it's a transitional phase. You never stay in yellow. In yellow, you transition to red, you go back to green. That's just how it works. Some important things to keep in mind with yellow zone fighting are here is where you might bring a weapon into play, depending on the weapon. Bladed weapons like knives and stuff, this is where you bring that into play. In green zone, it doesn't really do you much good. In red zone, it can be difficult to use. But in yellow, you have the space you need to attack your opponent effectively. Um, in knife work, we talked about what that means for everybody. Um, it means we're attacking the three systems of the body, right? The central nervous system, the muscular skeletal circulatory system, and then last but not least, your uh, organs, vital organs. Blunt force trauma is the typical term. Or if you puncture it, catastrophic organ failure. So, um, the other day I was talking to a fella who shoots Glocks. Okay, and he was, needless to say, a little bit not understanding why I said, well, if you're going for a pistol, in all likelihood, you're only going to get one, maybe three shots off if you're a hell of a gunman. And what I tried to explain to him is the rule of 21 feet. Okay. Now, there are a lot of people out here that talk about it, and there are a lot of people that say it's complete and utter bullshit. And I argue to those people, y'all never been in a close quarter gunfight. Um, Even if you're a hell of a quick draw, you got one shot, maybe three, like I said. Now, if you're shooting 9mm parabellum, that's not enough to win a gunfight, unless your target isn't wearing body armor. Um, so, we have to expect that a firearm ain't necessarily going to work for us. That's why I teach my students to dual wield, where you have your pistol in one hand, your knife in the other. Um, Now, let's say you're going for organ failure, right? Your top three targets for an organ with a blade or gun, for that matter, are going to be the heart, the lungs, and the kidneys. I stress that again: heart, lung, kidneys. Now, if you're going for a secondary target, those are your liver, spleen, stomach. We're in throwing gallbladder too, because it's right there next to the liver. Um, so those are your next three. And then your last level ones are your circulatory systems, your radial artery, your brachial artery, your carotid and jugular veins, and the femoral artery. Bleeders are just that. They're a little slow. Um, so it's not like in the movies where you cut the guy's throat and he squirts blood for like 2 minutes and then he slumps against the wall and dies. In reality, you cut somebody's throat, you do a good job on it, they're looking at about 10 seconds and then they lose consciousness. Um, you know, The drawback to that is, like I said, you got to make a good cut. Cutting the throat ain't easy. First and foremost, everybody who's ever been trained as a phlebotomist or a nurse knows your veins and your arteries like to move out the way. Okay. Second, there's a lot of tendons, muscle, gristle in the neck. These things slow down the pull on your blade, even with a sharp one. So it's easier to go for a puncture bleed. Now, what that means is you're basically going to shove your blade straight into the carotid artery and pull to sever it and then pull out. You're not going for the full neckline cut because, like I said, that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you got to get a good cut, you know. Puncturing the blade and then just pulling it out or scooping it in a circle and then moving out. Get your arteries, which are what you're really going for, with half the muss in trouble. And if you're going for a windpipe because you want a silent kill, prevent them from talking or screaming or all that, you can just shove straight in. There's no need to pull. Uh, so in yellow zone fighting, we try to use our blades to attack the bottom of the nerves and the arteries. So you can go for, your forearm cut where you start at the wrist and go to the back. Same true on the inside towards the elbow. You can go for your radial artery and nick that. Um, that's because in the yellow zone fighting, somebody's obviously going to be sticking their arm out at you at some point or another. And it's easier just to attack the arm than it is to try to go all the way to the body. You attack the arm and you transition your way into the body. Okay? One of the techniques I teach my disciples is, the four cut method, right? We cut lengthwise against the forearm, lengthwise against the radial artery. We cut lengthwise against the top of the bicep so that the muscle doesn't work. And then we shove the knife into the carotid artery and pull towards the jugular vein. Okay? It's known as the four cut method. It allows you to attack in a linear pattern the same side of the body and neutralize your target. So, our next video, we'll talk a little bit. We're going to circle actually back to um, ethics, and we're kind of going to go into that a little bit. But we're also going to go into the next lesson in DSMS. So stay tuned, and we'll see y'all next time. Constant vigilance.